Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, Alexander Hilly123 here, and it's time for a new video. And as you can see from the title, it's time for a new gaming pickups video today, the first in nearly 6 months on the channel. The rules in regards to the pickups videos are that I have to showcase 5 games. They can either be physical or digital, and that is as to why sometimes you see them once every couple of months if I've been purchasing a lot of games, and sometimes, well, in the past, the biggest distance between pickups videos has been about 12 to 18 months when I've just gone through a period of barely purchasing any games entirely. Now today, they're all on the Xbox that we're showcasing, the Xbox store. One is physical, 4 are digital. Every time I make these videos, I lament the fact that they're all becoming digital, but it is what it is. In fact, a few of these are digital only anyways, so nothing I could do. I've sold a lot of games in the last couple of months, ladies and gentlemen. Nearly made 3 figures in terms of sums on the games that I sold, and I want to support physical games. Alan Wake 2 is going to be digital only. There's been a lot of people very angry at that, not supporting the game. I still will be buying the game if it gets good reviews, but I'm certainly not pre-ordering it. But it is a shame that there are no physical copies. This could well be the death knell of physical media. And I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, the prices are going to get higher or stay high after release. It's just the way that it is. The second-hand gaming market is absolutely foo-bad these days. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to keep this under 30 minutes in length. I've already made a go at recording this. If you guys notice, by the way, the screen flashing, there's something not quite right with my webcam. It keeps doing this weird flash effect at the bottom of the screen. You will see it about here, but once every couple of minutes. I'm going to try it out of OBS, trying a different USB port where the webcam is in, and just see if that is happening on the Logitech software and on a different port. If it doesn't, then maybe it's the USB, I don't know. I'm hoping it's not the webcam, but it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years of age now. I've had it. 1080p is 1080p. I don't want anything else. I don't want 4K webcam or any shit like that. So it's planned obsolescence, so ladies and gentlemen, it is what it is. Anyway, now the first game I've got to show today is the only physical purchase. It's going to take up half of this video because, ladies and gentlemen, it's the Resident Evil 4 remake. The last couple of pickup videos I've done spoke in great length about Callisto Protocol and Dead Space Remake. I'm a big survival horror fan. My favourite gaming series of all time is the Resi series, from the original in '96 up until the original Resi 4. So I'm an old school fan, and with a series like this, it's like Final Fantasy or Zelda or any other franchise which has been going for so many like incantations of the series, so many different spin-offs. It's evolved, it's gone back to its roots, it's gone around the bloody bend, we've seen it all. There's going to be a lot of different opinions. And my opinion on this game is going to be a heck of a lot more harsh than most other people. If you want to know, ladies and gentlemen, my favourite 3 Resi games: original Resi 3, original remake, and the original Resi 4. Recently played Zero and Code Veronica though, and I like those games a lot as well. Code Veronica, the level design isn't great, but it's still fun. It's still classic Resi. And I can't talk about this game without telling you guys how I feel about the modern Resi games, which is that I don't feel like the gameplay is as good as it should be. I feel like Capcom are very stubborn in regards to changing, but people say that they listen to the fans a lot, and they do, and they genuinely do, because if you're on the Resi Ambassador program, whatever it's called, they'll email you and actually ask your thoughts on the game. What do you think of the gameplay? What do you think of the game world? They'll ask, like, did you buy it on PlayStation, Xbox? Where did you hear about the game? And yada, yada, yada. Loads of questions. So they're interested. The analytics are important to these companies, make no mistake. But one thing, since after Resi 4, the webcam just did its weird thing, I saw it. The gameplay, Resi 5 and 6, way too action-orientated. Revelations 1 stunk. I didn't like Resi 7 when they went back to the Resi roots, apparently, but I don't think that was back to roots. Yeah, it was slower paced, but walking around the house, skulking around, trying to avoid Jack Baker, that's not classic Resi. I remember many years ago on Twitch, I had a guy come into the stream a lot who I used to have great discussions whilst I replayed The Evil Within and did these challenge runs that I do on that game. We'd talk about Resi. And he wasn't thrilled with the remakes at all, and we'd have this back and forth and this debate, healthy debate where we're just listening to each other and oh yeah, okay, well. And I always felt like I was being kinder to the games than I actually felt. I do like Remake 2, but it's not incredibly fun. Shooting the zombie in the head 30 times isn't fun. There's just some decisions that Capcom make these days which blow my mind. Survival horror can be fun. And of course, it is just subjective at the end of the day. Some people may think that The Evil Within 1, which I think has got an amazing gameplay loop, isn't a great game. And the thing is with Capcom as well with their remakes, they do look to change up quite a lot of the original game. They certainly did that with 3. They did that with 2 to an extent, added some new areas, took things away from the original, changed some story beats, and obviously the gameplay perspective, which is going to be the case when you're going for a pre-rendered graphics tank controls games to a third-person perspective, for example. But with Resi 4 Remake, that game, the original, I remember playing it the year after release, in early 2006, and my brother telling me that this game is amazing, and it's just before Uncharted, just before Gears of War, just before Dead Space 1, and many, many other third-person games which took inspiration from the original Resi 4. So at the time, it was indeed unique. And as such, for me personally, I think this game was always fighting a losing battle to impress me, because we've seen these games all before in terms of a camera perspective, and it's not going to bring anything incredibly new to the table, to the party, like the original Resi 4 did. But the biggest difference for me is the tone of this game. It's a lot darker, it's a lot more serious, it's a lot more brooding. I love that style, but it's not what the original Resi 4 was. But yet and still, the original game had a lot of humour. It was wacky, it was crazy. It had the traps in the village, in the castle area especially. The back and forth between Leon and Salazar and all that was unbelievable. And they tried to recreate it a little bit in this game, but in my opinion, they never convincingly do so. The guy who plays Leon, he did an okay job, but I thought Matt Mercer, I think it was Matt Mercer, or was it Paul Mercier, that was it. Paul Mercier, who played Leon in Resi 4 Original, was incredible, and I don't think the new guy quite compares. There's a lot of gameplay elements before release that I heard of, which just had me shaking my head. Like, for example, the knife has a health bar. Didn't like hearing that. Obviously, no ballistics with Ashley. If you played the game before, you'll know what I'm talking about. Many things are similar, like the treasures, although they went really over the top with the treasures and made that more confusing than it needed to be. I took a picture on my phone so I can always remember on subsequent playthroughs. You're thinking, bloody hell, that's quite in depth. Yeah, it is, because there's loads of different colours with the treasures, and they even sucked the fun out of that. There's puzzles in this game. They're a little less simplistic than the ones in the original. They're not that much of an annoyance though. They're balanced, and the game's length after Resi 3 Remake, they were criticised heavily for cutting a lot of that game, and rightfully so. But they didn't cut even the worst parts of the original game out, and I laud them for that. I do appreciate that, because the Krauser parts, arguably, they didn't make worse than the original. But everything from the start of the game up until the start of the island in the original is just phenomenal. The pacing's great. It's not perfect. It is a long game. It's too long, in my opinion. But I had to replay this many times, and sometimes I don't think these devs quite realise, and yet again, this is subjective, how their achievements can potentially make a game not actually that fun. Because when I completed this, I then looked at the achievement list, complete it without speaking to the Duke. Not the Duke, sorry, it's village. The merchant. Complete it without healing. Complete it handgun knife only. Complete it in under 8 hours. All these different achievements, and you look at it and you think, can I nail all these together? Because that's what the gamer wants to do, but what the devs want you to do is do them individually, so you'll just replay the game again and again and again and again. And that's frustrating. And for me, it's a video of pure subjectivity today, ladies and gentlemen. Have your opinion, please, before hitting that thumbs down button and tell me if you agree. Because you might not do, and that's fine. But if you look at something like The Last of Us 2, you want to platinum that game, you just need 3 completions. With this, you need absolutely shitloads. You really do. And it becomes Albert Einstein-like levels of confusion in regards to platinum in the game. I've got about 80% achievements, and I'm not interested in getting any more. I'm not completing the game on professional, because yet again, Madhouse, Resi 7, Village of Shadows, Resi 8, Inferno, Resi 3 Remake, all utter trash difficulties in my opinion, which are just not fun, and I don't mind saying too difficult for me. And this is coming from a man who, first playthrough playing them, I did complete Grounded, Last of Us, Hardcore, Dead Space, Akuma Evil Within, these similar kind of games that I adore. I completed, and I raged through them all at times, don't get me wrong, but when the credits hit, when the achievement popped, there was satisfaction. There wouldn't be with Resi 4 Remake. They just go too far. You know, with Resi 2 Remake, where it's like, oh, enemies are tanking 20 headshots because they can. Because they can. I'm not going over the top though. You play the game, you'll definitely know what I'm talking about. With Resi 4 Remake, I don't feel like the upgrades do much. You shoot an enemy in the head in the original game, 3 or 4 knife hits, and on normal, they can die straight away. But in Resi 4 Remake, you're just thinking, that enemy's just got a little bit too much health. You shoot one in the head, you go for the roundhouse kick in the original. There's an enemy up front who you're roundhouse kicking. There's like 5 of them around, big groups of enemies. Do it, and they all spread out onto the floor. Some of them might not fall over, they'll just, be startled back. They'll give you space though, you can go in with a knife, a few hits, they're dead. Resi 4 Remake, it's just not like that. It doesn't behave the same way. Groups of enemies, when you're fighting them, I find it more frustrating than fun. And just recently, one of my favourite Twitch streamers, Jigsaw Killer's been doing a story playthrough of the game, and he comes on for 2 hours. He's playing it not like a speedrun, because a lot of these high Resi players speedrun the game, even though I wouldn't want to, in a million years, speedrun a modern Resi game. And no one seems to be enjoying the game that much, and in this day and age, it's a hive mind. We're going to move on to the next game in a minute, guys, but I do wonder how many people actually love this game and why. How many people love the game who've never played the original. I could really talk about this for an hour plus and give it its own video. But when I think of the game's too dark, Dead Space original was too dark. They're obsessed with making these games too dark now. There's no light areas. I don't like the serious tone. I don't like the gunplay. I think they made the treasures pointlessly complex. And when I think of this game, I just didn't enjoy it all that much. Less so than Dead Space Remake and Callisto, but gameplay is taking a backseat out. I think we're in a post-gameplay world. Seraphim17 is one of my favourite YouTubers and Twitch streamers, and he was hugely critical of Resi 4 Remake. There's a guy called Krobsy Bort or something like that. He's a Swedish documentary maker of video games. He's got millions of subscribers here on YouTube, and he did a video. It's called Soul versus Soulless. Watch it. It's in my favourites, ladies and gentlemen. It's mainly cutscenes, but just look at the difference between both. And people might disagree, but I just thought that video was fantastic, and it really split divided opinion. Maybe I need to just complete this game again on hardcore without having to care about the achievements, because when you're obsessing about an achievement and it's like, I need to complete this game in under 8 hours, or it's not going to pop, and I've wasted all this time, or maybe the no healing one will be too hard for me, yada yada yada, then it ain't fun, and Capcom needs to get this through the heads. I give them a hard time because of the way that, in my opinion, they jeopardise the series after 4. I always say that. I'm looking on the Wikipedia page here for like reasons why I don't like the game so much, and I kind of wish that I'd done notes about this before hitting the record button, because if any of you motherfuckers know me, you'll know that I'm not that way inclined. I think the lack of iframes is a huge issue as well. Modern Capcom just don't do iframes. Like, for me, remaking this game, you have to incorporate the kind of iframes that were in the original. They didn't. You don't get iframes in the remake, not like the original. You get the attaché case, you get the yellow herbs, but you don't really feel like the yellow herbs do what they should have done in the original. Maybe I just need to replay this. I'd love to come back and in a year's time say I was massively wrong about this game, but I just don't love this game like everyone else does, and it's getting absolutely 10 out of 10s, masterpiece reviews, and I don't get it. I just don't get it at all. There we have it. You'll never see it on the channel, by the way, especially as a walkthrough. But there's Resident Evil 4 Remake, ladies and gentlemen. Right, next, let us talk about Mad Max. Mad Max, a video game, ladies and gentlemen, released in September 2015. Developed by Avalanche Studios and published by Warner Brothers Entertainment. Obviously, I'm sure you all know about Mad Max as a movie. I remember watching the old trilogy when I was a kid. This dystopian, weird game, this world, and those movies really struck a chord with me. This is an open world game, ladies and gentlemen, and I've got to be honest, it's one of the most repetitive games I have ever played. The gameplay is a mixture of you being on foot and raiding camps and liberating them, and you think of the Ubisoft games like Assassin's Creed and Far Cry, you're doing that kind of shit in this game. You're also pimping your car up as well, putting spikes on the side to make it more beefy and faster and harder for enemies to jump on, because they will. And that's the thing, when you go into the open world in this game, you'll be attacked by enemies in the cars, and they won't leave you alone. And I assure you, after a while, you're going to get bored of them doing that. This game, I played it for about 40 hours. I used the howlongtobeat.com website before I played it, and I didn't get 100% on this game, but I did a lot of the busy work, so much so that by the end I started to resent the game. That's just my fault, isn't it? But this game is very repetitive, and I don't often say this, I'm not getting better at games the older I get, because the next game I can say this as well. But this game was also pretty easy. I played this on normal, and you get a shotgun, but you don't get a handgun, and that's quite weird, isn't it? Because in games, you get the handgun, you get the shotgun, you get the sniper, you get the magnum, you get the grenade launcher. You know, we're just talking about Resi, that's the way it works. But around Mad Max, the shotgun is the gun. And you get shivs as well, and the amount of ammo you get is very limited. And as soon as you limit that ammo stock, then I'm interested in your game. Because one of the most fun things for me in a game of any kind is when they really limit your resources and make it so that upgrading them is a must and it's satisfying. But yet and still, because the game is pretty easy, you don't feel that. This game has also got that kind of beat 'em up Batman, what is it, Arkham, what I can't remember what they're called. I've never played a Batman game in my life. I'm not big on Batman, but I've seen those games and I know it's the beat 'em up style of gameplay where there's like tons of enemies around you and somehow you can beat them all up. It's fun, but it's very limited. And there's an upgrade system to allow you to do a few extra things. For example, you can get them on the floor, stamp on the friggin' face or something, shiv them to death immediately. But if you do a lot of the side content in this game, you're going to make the game so easy that it becomes very trivial. And it's a shame, it really is, because this should be a dangerous game world, and it didn't feel like it. The pluses and the things that I liked about this game, for its time, it looks good. It's got a good cast of voice actors. The sound design's good. The game world looks very nice. Obviously, very barren and quite unique compared to many other games, I suppose. It says here, wasteland consisting of deserts, canyons and caves. You pick up scrap. That is the only upgrade system in the game. You pick up scrap. It's quite a solitary game. There's not tons of NPCs apart from the cutscenes, so when you're out in the game world, you go from mission to mission, sure, but apart from the enemies, there's not that many NPCs, and I do like that. I do like those kinds of game worlds. This wasn't a bad game, but they needed to vary the gameplay up. It was a little too long for what it was, and in this day and age, obviously, an open world game that lasts 40 hours is not long enough for the kiddies. They want it to be hundreds of hours. But this game could have been half as long and not been any worse for it. It was a little too long. I don't know if there will be a sequel to this game. I don't think it's sold incredibly well. But we'll see. You also get a little character called Chum Bucket. He repairs the car. And it takes like 10 seconds. You can upgrade that. There's a lot of upgrades. But for me personally, the game was just really easy. And that's so bizarre because I don't often say that. And the ending as well, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it was dumb. Let's just say that. The ending was dumb. Although I did like Mad Max's character. It kind of reminded me of Deacon St. John in Days Gone, where he was just saying some absolutely absurd things, and it was like some of the things that he's saying were not exactly politically correct. And that just excites me in the modern day. That just excites me because I know that it could be controversial. I know it's immature, but it's like, oh, I can't believe he just said that. So the guy who played Mad Max, yeah, he was a good fit for the job. And apparently they wanted to make the Mad Max voice American, but of course Mad Max is Australian. I'm delighted it was kept as Australian because, quite simply, it's different. How many Australian games do you get? You know, not many. Yeah, Mad Max, I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. Could have been a lot better had I had my way of making the game. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, third of the 5 games we're talking about today. It's an Ubisoft game. And this man hates Ubisoft. I know, I bet you can't believe it. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm currently watching one of my favourite Twitch streamers. I don't know if I mentioned this at the start of the video. Play Assassin's Creed at the moment. And he's raging his way through the game because of the achievements. He's trying to platinum the game. And he's raging because a lot of games, like I said before Resi, it just beggars belief that these devs think some of these things are fun when they're not. The kind of things that can be glitchy or take absolutely ages. Well, he's going through Assassin's Creed at the moment, and I'm never playing those games. But I've always wanted, because I do like to play FPS games, to play the Far Cry games. So I had a look online, which is the best Far Cry games. 2, 3, 4, some people like Primal. The newer games are just copy and paste, Ubisoft bollocks, as we all know. The first game has aged somewhat badly, to be honest. I'm sure people who played it on release will still love it. The second game has got this malaria mechanic. If you played the game, you're probably nodding your head knowing what I'm talking about. Now, I've never played it, but I read about it, I saw it, and it was like, I don't think I'm going to play this game. It's also very brown and grey, you know, the colour palette in that early PS3 360 era. All the games are brown and grey, which I don't really mind, you know, the old Gears games and shit like that. Killzone, I recently played the first-person shooter Black for the first time. It's that colour palette that was around at the time all the time, and now we're in a totally different gaming landscape where everything is colourful and bright, sometimes to the detriment of the game in my opinion. But this game is certainly colourful and bright. Going off on a tangent here, but I picked Far Cry 3, which for many people is the best, and the other Far Cry games that I'm going to purchase, you might see them in the next pickups video. Far Cry Primal, because a friend of mine loved the game and said it's well worth playing, and it's not gun gameplay, so it's not really an FPS exactly. There's loads of animals and you hunt them, which you do in Far Cry 3, but it's an FPS game with gunplay mostly. And Far Cry 4, which apparently is incredibly similar to 3, but I think that was released at the start of the Xbox One era. Far Cry 3 was released in 2012. And big, massive island, open world, sandbox, go kill the enemies, have fun. An intriguing story, a little bit daft to say the least. Another game which I felt was on the easier side, and maybe I'd regret saying this, but with Mad Max and Far Cry 3, had I played on hard mode, I think I'd have enjoyed it more. But what I ended up thinking when I completed Far Cry 3, and I must say it was quite nice because, pardon me, I got about 80 to 90% of the achievements. I nearly got the plat. I think there's like one poker one, which I didn't get because I don't understand how to play poker. Don't you just love it when devs think you can play poker and chess? I can't. But, yeah, a few achievements that I didn't get. But I did nearly everything in the game, apart from the races, and there's a few other side missions, miscellaneous shit you can do. But I did nearly everything, got all the achievements, and I played it between 30 and 35 hours. Brilliant. Because if it were longer, it wouldn't have been justified, because the gameplay, yet again, is very repetitive. When are people going to start understanding that an open world doesn't make a game more replayable? Don't get me wrong, there's some fantastic replayable open world games out there, but there's some that aren't replayable just because they're an open world game. I enjoyed Far Cry 3, and the gun mechanics, like aiming down the sights, tons of different machine guns, AKs, Uzis, handguns, magnums, assault rifles, heavy machine guns, like a Gatling gun. There's a bow, there's a grenade launcher, there's a rocket launcher. There's all these different guns, and typically, the more powerful the gun, the less ammo you get for it. But here's the thing. It was so easy to get shitloads of ammo. You die very quickly on normal difficulty in Far Cry 3, I noticed. But the enemies died really quickly as well. And apparently that's what lethal difficulty in Ghost of Tsushima is like, which I played, for the first time just over a year or so ago. I really enjoyed it. Obviously, no gunplay in that game, really. But I like games like that where at least the enemies drop very quickly. They're not tanky. It's a human enemy. You pepper a human a few times, bullets here, they're going to drop. There's bears and tigers that you can kill and skin them and you sell. And then you get a bigger pouch for the ammo. That was too easy in the game, and it frustrated me because if it was more difficult, it would have been so much more fun. That's just my opinion. Upgrade system, by the time it was halfway into the game, I felt like I'd upgraded everything, and personally, a lot of the upgrades were just arbitrary. It was just like, yeah, whatever. And that is the worst thing that a game can do, in my opinion. You can breathe underwater for 2 extra seconds. You had these injections where you can now see animals in the area for 10 seconds. You never use them, though. It's a shame, because the FPS mechanic's fantastic. Getting around the island in the car, cool. I hear there's a little flying, a little helicopter, I should say, that you can use in FUA. I am going to get FUA when it goes dirt cheap on the Xbox Store again. But after Primal and FUA, I don't think I'll be interested in another Far Cry game. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. I'm really happy with the mechanics of the gunplay and the length of the game. 30 to 35 hours. Liberating the towers. We can see where Dying Light got that from, because this was released obviously 3 years earlier. And also the camps, they're very repetitive, but marking the enemies and going in and killing them all, it was fun. Right, okay, next up, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk really quickly on this one. I assure you, the quickest of all the bunch here. I did even deliberate whether I wanted to talk about this. Quite simply, it's Football Manager Console 2023. The last couple of years, a lot of the old school Football Manager games that I've done on the channel have gotten me a lot of views, and I really appreciate that. I did a little video a few weeks ago predicting the start of the Premier League season. I was hoping it'd go semi-viral and get a few thousand views at least, but it hasn't. It's one of those that are going to trickle and drip feed views every couple of days, weeks, months, or even your year. But anyway, it's got about 73 views right now, and I think by the end of the year it'll probably have about 100 or something. So whatever, it didn't do as well as I hoped, but I enjoyed doing it. Got me a decent amount of views, and going forward, I am going to do a Let's Play of a Football Manager game next year when it's the Euros for 2024. I'm going to take control of England and have a Champman or 1 or 2, Football Manager 2006, and we'll play an England campaign. We'll be the England manager for a bit, because I don't want to let it encapsulate my channel and be what it's all about. I'm not interested in being a Football Manager streamer because the game is stressful and streaming it as well, I just wouldn't have fun. But I want to incorporate it into my channel a little bit with one-off videos, and when I get a cool idea of these kind of scenarios where, like for example, there's a guy called the Mega Luke that I watch. He just relegated all the Premier League teams, put them in the conference, all the conference teams go in the Premier League. It's always fun to see, as a Football Manager fan, what happens in those kind of made up simulations. But yeah, Console 23, I got it on the Xbox, and then using the Xbox app and playing it on my laptop. Why Sports Interactive can't just put it on Steam, I don't know. But I'm able to get achievements while playing Football Manager, and I quite like that, I must admit. I've plugged about 50 hours in. We'll see how much more I play, but I can't shake the feeling that if you get the console version these days, you're not getting the full experience. And of course, yes, you aren't, but the full experience, the depth of the current console games is what it was like around about 2006, 7, 8. The full fat games back in the day, but push comes to shove, I'd rather play those older games than the newer ones. Apparently, not this year, but next year, Football Manager 2025, new match engine, new UI, women's football is in, and it's a new graphics engine. So this time next year, we'll see what that's like. FM24 might just skip a generation, or a year I should say, because I'm not that interested. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, 30 minutes now, talking shit. Let's make sure this video is under 35 minutes. It's a game, the final one that I'm showing today, which I've been waiting to play for just over a year. Initially, it wasn't even meant to be on the Xbox, and then I heard that it was coming to Xbox, and then I never knew when. A few months ago, it got announced, and it was a game that I wanted to play at launch, because when you play a lot of brutal, violent video games like I do, a nice palate cleanse is certainly needed once in a while. And ladies and gentlemen, the game is Stray, which was released a few days ago, about last week I should say, on the Xbox Series X. Just completed it on Xbox One as well. And Stray is the game where you play as a cat. It's the cat game. You go about jumping on ledges, jumping, if you're in a house, you jump on the windowsill. If you're outside, you're jumping on the roofs, the rooftops and stuff like that. You get a little character, a little machine, a little robot about 10% of the way into the game called B12, who helps you, and you can kill these little bug enemies like head crabs from Half-Life. Honestly, they're basically head crabs from Half-Life. Press a button, this purple light shines on them, boom, and they blow up, they die. Very, very simplistic game, very simplistic puzzles, not much of a challenge. If you're someone who thinks that every game must be an incredibly brutal, difficult challenge, or you need to prove yourself in terms of the gameplay, you might not enjoy this. You might just like this if you like cats, ladies and gentlemen. Cats are pretty cool. I'm not an animal lover really, but yeah, cats are pretty cool. And this was just a nice game, and I think what I was looking for myself with this game was for it to be this generation's version of something like Limbo or Inside. But the thing is, it's not really a platformer game, Stray, because you don't actually do the platforming. It's not like, oh, I'm balancing here, I could fall off at any time. You press the A button, the cat jumps. It's a narrow beam that's like that. You're not going to fall off though. You can't press left and right to fall off. You just look for another ledge higher or lower than you. You press A, the cat jumps to it. The controls couldn't be more simple, but I didn't mind that. The game looks glorious. It was a very nice game to look at. Performance was good. The audio was fantastic. I think it took me about 10 hours to complete. For most people, they're saying 6 hours, but most modern gamers, especially young people, race through games. For me, I'd say this is a little longer than games like Limbo and Inside, and as such, I definitely don't think this is too short. Not going to give the game away in terms of the story, but the story suggested, the ending suggested, could well be a sequel. No one's going to be surprised by that. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I've got about nearly 3/4 of the achievements. I'm going to mop up a few more. There's a speedrun one for under 2 hours. I'm going to have a look online for that. But yeah, I enjoyed it overall. But for some people, I can see this being a little dull. At £25 as well, it might be considered a little steep. But I wanted to purchase this one immediately because I wanted to support the devs. I've waited for this and I wasn't disappointed. I enjoyed the game, and I think there's enough there to make the sequel even more interesting. Get the other cats involved so you can control more than one. A bit of like It Takes Two or Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, where two characters are doing something together to help each other. I think that'll be really intriguing. And yeah, there's different levels. There's the slums, there's the mid-town, like a big town. You talk to these robots a lot in the game who've overtaken humans. Humans have long gone and we don't know why. And you're doing simple puzzles in the game, nice collectibles. Once every year or so, I like to play a game like this, just as a palate cleanse. It's got great reviews. I can definitely understand why some people would say it's so simplistic that there's not much of a game there, but I don't really mind. I don't play tons of games like this, and I enjoyed it. And yeah, there's not much more else to say. I do apologise, ladies and gentlemen, for this video being so long. I've really tried to keep it succinct, but we're at 35 minutes now. I'm blaming this game, and despite all my criticisms, I'm going to go back to it in a few weeks and just see what I think, and try to see if the gameplay really is that sluggish and slow and frustrating like I felt it was. But the next pickups video, I'm not sure, you know. I think it might be one that comes quicker than you'd think. Maybe even before Christmas still, because there's about 3 or 4 games that I'm going to be purchasing. A a couple in October. I don't usually like to tell you guys, but I'm sure you'll not be surprised. Alan Wake 2, Sonic Superstars. Could Sonic Superstars be good? I certainly hope it is, but I don't hold much hope. And I'm telling you right now, if it's not good, considering the fact that they've turned their back on Sonic Mania 2, I will be hounding Sega out. I will be hounding them out. I'm telling you right now. But thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen. There's a Red House Painters, the band, Mr. Mark Kozilek, the contentious man. I'm going to be doing that next week. And I've got an ISS Pro Evolution 2 football Let's Play to do with England. Trust me, it's going to be a good one. The best football game ever made, in my opinion. I'm saying it right now.